Just because he took an extra look at his favorite game during his break, his wife wanted a divorce when he got home. After the man begged for everything, his wife reluctantly agreed to give him one last chance. However, the man did not change his ways, and he was still late the next day. When he got home, he was shocked to find that not only was the entire room empty, but even the few pieces of furniture had been looted. He desperately called out his wife's name, but only got an empty echo in return. It wasn't until he picked up the short and insulting note on the floor that he suddenly realized that his wife had long since cheated on him and left with another man. As if the rain wasn't enough, the man's luck took a turn for the worse. When he returned to work after trying to calm down, his boss regretfully informed him that he had been fired. The news came as a bolt from the blue, and misfortune followed one after the other. His life had changed overnight. This was perhaps the saddest moment of his life. In fact, the man could not entirely blame the outside world. In his 30s, he had no home, no car, no savings, and had accomplished nothing. He did not even have a decent job. He could only sit helplessly on the ground, accepting his fate of failure. Tommy lives in 1970s Philadelphia. In those dark times, businesses went bankrupt one after the other, factories closed down, and unemployment became the norm. Confusion and anxiety hung over the entire city. For Tommy, who had suffered such a huge blow, the only way to temporarily relieve his heartache was to play a wild rugby match in the dim streets. In the midst of the hearty melee, he also met a group of like-minded brothers. Understanding his current predicament, his friend, who ran the bar, was willing to let him work there. To solve the problem of feeding himself, he asked his friend to increase his workload in exchange for more pay. Although the bar's business was also very poor, out of sympathy, his friend agreed to this request. Even though hope was as hard to find as stars in the dark night sky, Tommy did not abandon his faith. To him, the unyielding Eagles were always a beacon of hope. Not only that, but the Eagles were also the spiritual pillar of the entire city, with countless frustrated people pinning their hopes for a better future on the team. However, the Eagles of today are no longer the Eagles of old. After suffering an embarrassing 10-game losing streak, they lost to the bottom-ranked Giants by a lopsided score of 0-31. This outrageous defeat completely destroyed the faith of the fans. The entire stadium was suddenly drowned in a sea of curses and sighs. Although they were all kinds of unprintable curses, who wouldn't want their home team to regain its former glory? The next day, Tommy went to work at the bar as usual, but was surprised to find a beautiful girl there. After some introductions, he learned that Aisha was the owner's cousin. The two hit it off immediately, and they always looked at each other when they worked, with a subtle light in their eyes, as if they were quite interested in each other. At this moment, a news report on the TV interrupted the laughter and chatter. As the Eagles were now on the wane, the desperate head coach had no choice but to take extreme measures. He decided to recruit talent from the general public, and anyone who was interested in rugby could participate in the selection and become a member of the Eagles through the preliminary selection. However, everyone knew what was going on. The coach was ostensibly trying to revive the team, but in reality he saw the team as a tool for making money. Only if the team could attract a steady stream of attention could he reap the benefits. His friend suggested that Tommy sign up for the tryouts because he could run circles around some of the pros. But Tommy had long since lost the sharp edges of his life, and at the age of 30, despite the fact that rugby was the light of his life, it was now difficult for him to regain that confidence. Tommy is already full of self-hatred, and Johnny, who is standing nearby, deliberately stands out and mockingly says that his wife left him because Tommy always goes out late at night and plays on the football field. This remark undoubtedly touches Tommy's red line, and he immediately angrily walks over to give the indiscreet bastard a lecture. The boss sees this and quickly intervenes to stop him, and after driving Johnny away, the impending conflict is calmed down. In such a miserable environment, everyone is suppressed with pent-up anger that has nowhere to go, and the unemployed Johnny is no exception. As the noise of the pub faded, the night fell quietly. After 3 rounds of wine, Tommy and his friend talked about their hearts. His friend comforted Tommy, saying that Johnny just needed a job. His biological brother had also died not long ago, and what had happened to him was actually not much different from Tommy's, so he shouldn't take the other person's drunken nonsense to heart. At the same time, his friend once again mentioned the team selection. Although he is pessimistic about everything, he has full confidence in Tommy. Because of his performance on the wild pitch, everyone can see for themselves. He believes that with Tommy's strength, he will definitely be selected by the team, not to mention the fact that he is also the most loyal Eagles fan. But Tommy always had self-doubts. He admitted that he had only played on the high school team for 1 year, and there was no way he could be selected. His friends advised him to seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After all, the Eagles were the holy land of countless football fans. Although the team's performance had not been satisfactory in recent years, stepping onto that stadium was still the dream of countless people. Even if you could only be there for an hour, it would be enough to be remembered forever. Tommy's heart wavered, but right now he had to solve his survival problem. He could only find the courage to approach his father in the dead of night and confess his dilemma. $100, I can pay you back as soon as I get it. Good times, I've needed help too. This is family. Little did he know that his father was also having a hard time. His aging legs and feet, coupled with his bedridden mother, made it difficult for any adult to ask for money. However, when in a desperate situation, family is often our last resort. Learning about the team tryouts, his father encouraged him to go for it. Even if he failed, it would not have a significant impact on his current life. Tommy's confidence was ignited by these words. On the day of the tryouts, the figure of this middle-aged man appeared on the field. Obviously, the coach's decision had been effective, and the venue was packed with people. Such a large scale attracted the attention of the media. However, although each of these people was full of enthusiasm, they did not have the strength to match it. There were hulking green giants, elderly men with weak legs, and even a young black man knocked down by rugby. It was not like a player selection scene, but more like a gathering of clowns. The media called it an unprecedented monkey show, and even the head coach just wanted to end the farce he had created. That is, until Tommy appeared and caught the coach's eye. He stood on the 40-yard line. As the referee blew the whistle, he sprinted out like a sword unleashed. No one could match his speed. Every muscle in his body was shaking violently, and every step he took was full of astonishing power. The result of 4.5 seconds left all the coaches dumbfounded. Tommy was then arranged to take the catch test. It was at this moment that his amazing talent became apparent. No matter how far the pass was, he was always able to intercept the ball first. No matter how the rugby ball came in from any tricky angle, he was always able to catch it steadily. When the test was over, Tommy realized that the car wouldn't start, which seemed to indicate that he had failed the selection. Just as he was at his wit's end, the coach appeared and gave him a surprise. He first asked Tommy which school he had graduated from. Tommy answered truthfully that he had never been to college. When the coach learned that he was 30 years old, an awkward silence fell between them. Back at the pub, Tommy's life returned to normal. Rugby was still the talk of the town. The news of the selection trials was on the TV, and the reporter mockingly taunted, "Although the Eagles are unlikely to regain their former glory, they have now completely degenerated into a 100-star stage." Fortunately, the team still had a glimmer of sanity, and they only selected one person from this group to join the team. That person was Tommy, who cleaned the bar. When they heard the name Tommy, the friends almost simultaneously looked incredulous. The owner even lifted Tommy high in the air and excitedly announced that he would pay for the whole bill tonight. Aisha is a big Hawks fan, and when she heard that Tommy had been drafted by her favorite team, she couldn't hide her joy. Then the owner called Tommy outside alone and handed him some cash as a small token of his appreciation. But Tommy refused his kindness. "I'm only temporarily on the team. I may not stay for long." While the two were talking, Aisha happened to be getting ready to go home from work. The boss could see that the two had feelings for each other, so he asked Tommy to give Aisha a ride home. Walking along the street in the gentle breeze, the two seemed to have endless things to talk about. But perhaps due to a setback in his relationship, even though Tommy's heart was slightly swaying, he chose to handle it calmly and didn't choose to boldly pursue love any further. When he got home, his friend asked him to turn on the TV and watch the sports channel. However, Tommy's room was already bare, as his ex-wife had moved out with all the family belongings. Helpless, he could only knock on the door of the old neighbor in the middle of the night. A Tommy interview was being broadcast on TV. Not only had he won the support of the entire crowd, but he was also described as Cinderella in non-slip shoes. Tommy became a household name overnight. The dream has come true, but it has also multiplied the pressure on Tommy. Everyone is looking to him for new hope, so he has to work twice as hard to live up to expectations. As the skyline of the East is just being painted gold, he starts his intensive physical training on the street, bathed in the morning sun. But after just a few steps, he returns home panting. Growing older has made it impossible for him to engage in physical activities for long periods of time. Like most people, Tommy had a fleeting thought of giving up at this moment. But looking at the messy room in front of him, his wife's sarcastic ridicule came flooding back. At this thought, he was reinvigorated. Life is a one-way street, and there is no turning back the hands of time. Only by facing the storm head-on and moving forward in the face of adversity can you break through and gain a new lease of life. So, he resolutely turned and threw himself into training. Crossing bridges streaked with the colors of the sunset and stepping over dark and deep culverts. Every drop of sweat shed was the will to never give up. This accumulation of knowledge and experience will eventually turn into the ease of performing well with confidence one day and shine on the stage of his dreams. A few days later, Tommy arrived at the team training camp full of expectations. But as soon as he walked into the dormitory, he noticed that his name was misspelled. Faced with Tommy's confusion, the staff told him arrogantly, "It doesn't matter at all. You're lucky to be here for 3 days." Then he took out his ex-wife's insulting rumors and quietly pressed them under the towel to remind himself to give it his all. The tall young players laughed and joked among themselves, while the old Tommy seemed a bit out of place. The coach didn't care about any of that, though. He only cared about whether the players could help the team win. And there was a very cruel review mechanism here, too. Whenever the coach saw a player who wasn't performing well, the only thing that player could do was pack his or her things and go home. The training match officially kicked off. Under the coach's methodical guidance, they practiced catching and jumping on the field. Among these players, Tommy, wearing jersey number 83, stood out even more. He was happy and seemed to have endless energy. In every practical exercise, he also spared no effort to compete for the ball and then ran towards the end of the field with the ball in his arms. However, his attitude was targeted by the other players. After the training, Tommy's body was bruised and black and blue. But not only did none of the team members show any concern, they even mocked him blatantly, saying, "If you're not capable, just go home and don't take up a place here for nothing." On his first day on the team, he was treated like this, and no one even wanted to share a room with him. Fortunately, Aisha was always there to offer Tommy a little comfort when he was down, giving him the courage to face the next day of grueling training. The two also grew to appreciate each other more and more as they spent more and more time together. After a period of intense training, the first batch of eliminated names were announced. As the door was knocked on room after room, Tommy had already packed his things and was mentally prepared to leave. It wasn't until the noise outside his door had completely died down that he realized he wasn't on the list of eliminated names. The days at the training camp were not easy. Due to his age, Tommy's reaction and agility had decreased. In order not to be eliminated, Tommy had to ignore the coach's objections and replace the heavy equipment. That protective gear is there to protect you. You can't throw away the quarterback's protective gear. "You won't last a week, Tommy." "It's okay, coach. This will really make me more agile." Sure enough, Tommy, who had returned to the field, was like a new man. He raced like a black lightning bolt, not afraid of the burly black players at all. Although he gained an advantage in ball recovery, the price he paid was more violent collisions. After training, he sat in the locker room, holding back the intense pain as he wrapped bandages around his waist again and again. His perseverance and determination were touching, and the head coach also noticed him. Back at the pub, Aisha was undoubtedly a ray of sunshine in his otherwise gloomy life. A bowl of piping hot chicken soup was enough to ease all the pain he had suffered. But the relentless passage of time had already worn away the sharp edges of his character. Tommy no longer dared to get involved in this love mess. But as a token of his appreciation, he kindly invited his new friend to dinner the next day. Aisha was looking forward to their first date and even wore her favorite sky blue dress. But as soon as they met, Tommy confessed that he wanted to focus on the team. After all, he needed to solve the problem of survival before he could find the courage to pursue love. Tommy suppressed the love growing unrestrained in his heart, but it left Aisha, who was full of expectations, feeling disappointed. She could only leave in anger and embarrassment. Back at training camp, Tommy is surprised to find that he has a new roommate. This big guy is different from the other team members, who are all a bit standoffish. As soon as Tommy enters the room, he is grabbed by the scruff of the neck. "What color are my knuckles?"
What?
"What color are my knuckles?"
White.
"White. You see white because my fists are clenched. It means I'm coming after you. If I'm relaxed, the color comes back." Although the attitude was a bit rude, Tommy understood that it was a kind offer. Then came another long and hard training session. After Tommy integrated the techniques taught by the big guy into actual combat, he not only improved rapidly, but also gained the recognition of some of the team members. But even though he has done his best in every way, there is no knowing whether he will ultimately be able to stay. The preseason came as expected, and the Eagles were unable to shake off the shadow of their losing streak. A miserable 6-game losing streak made the dawn of victory seem unattainable. Training camp soon ushered in the final round of layoffs. The coaching staff agreed that Tommy should be let go due to his age. Despite his excellent performance in training, he may have problems on the field. The head coach, however, saw things differently. He had discovered that Tommy was the heart of the team and that the team was better together with him. After the meeting, he was in deep thought. His wife also supported his view, but now he was facing pressure from the entire membership and public opinion. How to withstand the pressure and keep Tommy was a difficult problem. Tommy also sensed that he would be out. The team members gloated, saying, "It's about time the old guy left." Just then, the head coach found him. Tommy went to the office with trepidation and said bluntly, "Thank you for your care over this period." Then he handed over his player information. But the coach pushed the information back. It turned out that the head coach had not given in to public opinion, but had instead exercised his veto and kept Tommy on the team, and he would officially join the Eagles. He finally had the courage to call his friends to help him fix his car and tell him the good news. The whole pub raised a toast to celebrate for him, and the owner proudly announced, "The Eagles player is my pride." Elsa also put Tommy's previous disrespectful behavior behind her and sincerely felt happy for him. After the revelry, Tommy will officially face the test of the competition. Tommy stood on the field of the highly anticipated competition as he wished, and the team members were very nervous. They desperately needed a victory to restore the confidence of the fans and prove their worth. The friends in the pub gathered around the TV set to watch Tommy's debut. The match officially kicked off with the referee's coin toss. Tommy showed off his impressive skills, sprinting like lightning, deftly avoiding various interceptions, and coming to the front of the receiver. But just as he was about to catch the ball, he was knocked away by a burly man coming at him, resulting in the loss of a great offensive opportunity. The entire stadium instantly erupted in a sea of boos. Tommy got up and expressed his guilt to the coach as soon as possible. "Sorry, coach." "You're sorry? I stuck my neck out for you. You start playing football, you die. The more you fear failure, the closer you are to failure." There was no doubt that the Eagles would eventually lose the game by an extremely embarrassing score. The players were lifeless, as if their fighting spirit had been completely extinguished, and the public pressure on the coach had reached an all-time high. The media unabashedly defined him as a loser, with headlines directly calling for his dismissal. The accusations and insults from the public and the media came in a torrent, plunging the entire team into an endless depression. Tommy sat alone on the pitch as the radio broadcast a blatant mockery. "What's 30-year-old Kubo doing in this position?" Deep thoughts spread out before him like a photocopy of a decadent life. As he was driving aimlessly down the street, he accidentally noticed a young boy playing in jersey number 83. He froze for a moment, realizing that his story had already influenced others in an invisible way. So, for the sake of those youthful friendships, for the joy of his aging father, for the constant dedication and encouragement of his friends, and to say goodbye to the person he once was who achieved nothing, he must fight back. After all the twists and turns, he returned to the muddy rugby field. The clearer the coordinates of his memories, the more determined his steps forward. Moments later, he chose to join this wild rugby match in the pouring rain. Only here could he feel this pure love without reservation. As the noise of the stadium died down, Tommy seemed to find the courage to move forward. When he returned home, he found Aisha waiting for him at the door. This time, instead of being timid, he bravely embraced her and kissed her. The next day, the heated match arrived as scheduled. This time, they were going to face the Giants, the team that had defeated them 31-0. The coach encouraged the team over and over again. Although we were not born with extraordinary talent, we each have our own unique characteristics and are no match for anyone. We are not just carrying our own dreams, but the hopes of the entire city. After the inspiring warm-up, Tommy silently took out the insulting note left by his ex-wife. After reading it one last time, he tore it into pieces, symbolizing his complete rejection of the label of loser. Amidst the enthusiastic cheers of the audience, the game officially began. Player 83 Tommy, regardless of the consequences, sprinted forward, doing his best to knock down one opponent after another. His movements were swift and powerful. As the last of his large and burly opponents was knocked to the ground, the entire audience was instantly ignited with passion. Tommy's powerful defense forced the Giants to retreat 15 yards. Then, with absolute confidence, he pointed to the stands, as if to proclaim that this was their Eagles arena. One gesture not only ignited the stands, it also boosted the morale of the entire team. For the first time, the downtrodden Eagles saw the light at the end of the tunnel. The game continued, with both teams playing neck and neck, each scoring a spectacular touchdown. After a short adjustment, Tommy once again took to the field. With the support of his teammates, he was unstoppable, sprinting at full speed. Even when he encountered an opponent blocking his way, he was not afraid, wrestling with him desperately before finding an opportunity to knock him to the ground. A series of smooth moves, each one hitting the audience's passionate nerve endings. They even brought banners to cheer for Tommy. The long-lost cheers and shouts echoed in their hearts, allowing the team to regain that passion and vitality and also to put on a thick layer of armor for them. After falling down again and again, they got up and rejoined the battle in a victorious manner. The game was gradually drawing to a close in a high-spirited mood, but the score between the two teams was still close. At this critical moment, Tommy keenly noticed that the opponent's knuckles had turned white and immediately shouted, "It appears Eagles are going a last-second audible, changing the play." Tommy quickly made a surprise attack and scored his first touchdown of his career. The Eagles eventually reversed the score by one ball and defeated the Giants who had humiliated them. Who would have thought that a 30-year-old Kubo would lead a losing team to create an unprecedented miracle? From being unknown to becoming a shining star, from being submissive to fighting back, from being disheartened to being unafraid of the future, Tommy perfectly embodies the courage of a true warrior and the truth about facing up to a dismal life.